In a bustling city filled with towering buildings and endless traffic, there lived a young woman named Maya Johnson. She was 28 years old, hard-working, and full of determination. Maya worked as a waitress at a popular chain restaurant known for its affordable meals and lively atmosphere. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and for Maya that mattered more than anything. As a single mother to her bright-eyed 6-year-old son, Ethan, she carried the weight of responsibility on her shoulders every day. From sunrise to sunset, she juggled long shifts, late nights and early mornings, all while ensuring Ethan had everything he needed. Maya's co-workers often marveled at how effortlessly she handled life's challenges. No matter how chaotic things got at the restaurant, she always greeted customers with a warm smile and genuine enthusiasm. Her kindness wasn't just an act, it came naturally to her. Whether it was refilling drinks, recommending dishes, or simply listening to someone having a bad day, Maya made sure everyone felt seen and valued. It wasn't uncommon for regular patrons to request her section because they knew she'd go the extra mile to make their dining experience special. But not everyone appreciated Maya's dedication. Some of her co-workers teased her about being too nice and warned her that putting in so much effort wouldn't pay off in the long run. "You're here to work, not make friends," one co-worker once said. Maya brushed off their comments, though. To her, treating people well wasn't optional, it was part of who she was. And deep down, she believed that doing the right thing would eventually lead to something good. One evening, during the busiest hour of the dinner rush, an elderly man walked into the restaurant. He moved slowly, leaning heavily on his cane as he navigated the crowded space. His clothes were simple, a faded jacket, slightly worn-out shoes, and his face bore the lines of many years lived. Most of the staff barely glanced at him as he took a seat near the back corner of the dining area, but Maya noticed him immediately. Something about the way he hesitated before sitting down told her he might need a little extra care. As she approached, his table with a menu in hand, Maya smiled warmly. "Good evening, sir. Welcome. Can I get you started with something to drink?" The man nodded politely but seemed unsure of what to order. When she handed him the menu, she noticed his hands trembled slightly, making it difficult for him to hold it steady. Sensing his struggle, Maya gently asked, "Would you like me to guide you through the options?" "I'd be happy to help." The man looked up at her, his eyes softening with gratitude. "That would be wonderful, thank you," he replied in a voice tinged with age. Over the next few minutes, Maya patiently described each dish, taking note of his preferences. By the time she finished, he had chosen a steak with mashed potatoes and green beans. As she placed his order, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this man wasn't like most of the customers who came through the door. There was a quiet dignity about him, a sense that he carried stories no one else could see. When the food arrived, Maya delivered it to his table with her usual attentiveness. But as she set the plate down, she noticed something. The man was having trouble cutting his steak. His hands shook too much for him to manage the knife and fork properly. Without thinking twice, Maya leaned forward and offered, "Would you mind if I helped you with that, sir? I don't want your meal to get cold." The man chuckled softly, nodding. "I'd appreciate that, young lady. My hands aren't what they used to be." With practiced ease, Maya began slicing the steak into small, manageable pieces, careful to maintain professionalism despite the curious glances from nearby tables. Some of her co-workers whispered among themselves, questioning whether this kind of behavior was appropriate. But Maya ignored them. To her, helping someone in need wasn't a question, it was a duty. By the time the man finished his meal, he looked visibly relieved. He thanked Maya warmly, leaving behind a modest tip before shuffling out of the restaurant. As she cleared his table, Maya felt a small sense of pride. She didn't know it then, but this seemingly ordinary interaction would soon become the defining moment of her life. After assisting the elderly man with his meal, Maya returned to her usual routine, weaving between tables and ensuring everyone in her section was taken care of. The restaurant buzzed with activity, families laughing over shared plates, couples stealing quiet moments together, and friends chatting animatedly about their day. Despite the chaos around her, Maya felt a Small sense of satisfaction knowing she had made the elderly man's evening just a little bit easier. Helping others always gave her a quiet joy, even if it went unnoticed by most people. But not everyone saw her actions the same way. As Maya cleared dishes from another table nearby, she overheard murmurs from two of her co-workers. "Did you see what she did?" one of them whispered, pointing toward the corner where the elderly man had been sitting. "She cut up his food for him like he was a kid. That's not our job." The other co-worker shrugged but added, "Yeah, I don't know why she does stuff like that. It makes us look bad. What if someone complains or posts about it online? People will think we're unprofessional." Maya heard their words but chose not to respond. She'd grown used to judgmental comments from co-workers who didn't understand her perspective. To them, being a waitress meant sticking strictly to the rules. Take orders, serve food, collect payment, and repeat. Anything beyond that was considered unnecessary or worse, risky. But Maya believed there was more to her role than following a script. For her, it wasn't just about serving meals. It was about making sure people left feeling cared for, especially those who seemed to need a little extra kindness. As the dinner rush began to wind down, Maya continued tidying up her section, stacking chairs and wiping down tables. She thought briefly about the elderly man and wondered how often he faced challenges like the ones she'd witnessed tonight. Did he live alone? Did anyone else look out for him? These questions lingered in her mind as she worked, though she knew she might never have answers. Later that evening, after the last customer had left and the lights dimmed in the dining area, Maya was called into the manager's office. Greg, the restaurant's stern-faced manager, sat behind his desk, tapping a pen against a clipboard. His expression was unreadable, but Maya immediately sensed something was wrong. Her stomach tightened as she took a seat across from him. "Maya," Greg began, his tone clipped and formal, "I need to talk to you about an incident earlier tonight." He paused, leaning forward slightly. "A customer mentioned that you assisted him with cutting his food, is that correct?" Maya nodded cautiously. "Yes, sir. He was having trouble holding the utensils because of his hands. I didn't want his meal to go to waste, so I offered to help. I thought it was the right thing to do." Greg sighed heavily, shaking his head. "Look, I get that you were trying to be helpful, but this isn't acceptable. We have standards here, Maya. Our customers expect professionalism, not personal favors. Cutting up someone's food looks unhygienic and unprofessional. If word gets out, it could damage the restaurant's reputation." Maya opened her mouth to protest, but Greg held up a hand to silence her. "I'm sorry, but I can't overlook this. You've been warned before about going above and beyond in ways that make us look bad. Unfortunately, this time it's gone too far." Her heart sank as the reality of his words hit her. "Are you firing me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Greg hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Effective immediately. I'll mail your final paycheck to your address. You can clock out now." Stunned and fighting back tears, Maya stood up and walked out of the office. The weight of the decision pressed down on her chest as she gathered her belongings and stepped outside into the cool night air. How could something as simple as helping an elderly man cost her livelihood? She replayed the events of the evening, in her mind, searching for any sign that she'd done something wrong, but all she could see was compassion. Driving home in silence, Maya wrestled with feelings of anger, frustration, and fear. How would she explain this to Ethan? How would she pay rent or buy groceries without a steady income? The uncertainty loomed large, casting a shadow over everything she had worked so hard to build. Yet, even in her darkest moment, a small part of her refused to regret her actions. Deep down, she still believed that kindness mattered, even if the world didn't always agree. The days following her termination felt like a blur for Maya. Each morning, she woke up with a heavy heart, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her chest. Her routine, once filled with purpose and structure, now felt hollow. Without her job, she struggled to keep up with bills, and the fear of eviction loomed over her small apartment. The thought of explaining the situation to her son, Ethan, weighed heavily on her mind. How could she tell him that their stability was crumbling? She wanted to shield him from worry, But she knew it wouldn't be long before he noticed something was wrong. To make ends meet, Maya began cutting corners wherever she could. She skipped meals so Ethan wouldn't go hungry, rationed groceries carefully, and avoided turning on the heat even as the nights grew colder. Every envelope that arrived in the mail filled her with dread. Was it another bill she couldn't pay? The stress gnawed at her, leaving her exhausted and emotionally drained. Yet despite the growing pile of challenges, Maya refused to give up. She spent hours each day applying for new jobs, scrolling through listings online, and dropping off resume at local businesses. But no matter how many applications she submitted, rejection followed rejection. Some employers dismissed her outright because of the gap in her employment history. Others hesitated when they learned about her termination. It was as if one mistake had erased years of hard work and dedication. One particularly difficult evening, Maya sat at the kitchen table with Ethan, who was coloring pictures of superheroes. He looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes and asked, "Mommy, why are you so sad lately?" His question caught her off guard, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she forced a smile and replied, "I'm just tired, sweetheart. Everything will be okay soon." But inside, Maya wasn't sure she believed her own words. Doubts crept into her mind, whispering cruel thoughts that maybe she should have stayed quiet, kept her head down, and followed the rules instead of listening to her heart. Had her kindness really been such a terrible thing? Why did doing the right thing feel like it had cost her everything? Just as despair threatened to consume her, an unexpected letter arrived in the mail. It was thin, unassuming, and bore no return address. Curious, Maya opened it and found a handwritten note inside. The handwriting was neat but slightly shaky, as though written by someone older. As she read the first few lines, her breath caught in her throat. "Dear Maya, thank you for your kindness during what I can only assume was a busy shift. You treated me with dignity and compassion, qualities I value deeply both personally and professionally. Please call me so we may discuss how I can repay your generosity." Beneath the message was a business card. Printed on it were the words James Whitaker III and a title that made Maya's eyes widen: CEO, Whitaker Enterprises. Below that was a phone number and an email address. For a moment, Maya stared at the card, certain she must be dreaming. Could this be real? Was the elderly man she'd helped truly the CEO of one of the largest corporations in the country? Her hands trembled as she turned the card over, searching for some sign that this might be a prank or a misunderstanding. But there was nothing. Just the simple elegance of the card and the sincerity of the note. Slowly, realization dawned on her. This was no ordinary coincidence. Somehow the man she'd assisted that fateful night had seen something in her, a spark of humanity, and he wanted to help. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of hope. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe that maybe things would turn around. Maybe her act of kindness hadn't been in vain after all. Clutching the card tightly, she whispered a silent prayer of gratitude. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. Life had a way of surprising you when you least expected it, and perhaps, just perhaps, this surprise would change everything. Maya stared at the business card for what felt like hours, her mind racing with questions. Could this really be happening? Was it possible that the elderly man she had helped was not just a regular customer, but someone with immense influence and power? The idea seemed almost too incredible to believe. Yet there it was, a simple piece of paper bearing his name and title. Whitaker Enterprises wasn't just any company. It was a household name, known for its innovative technology, charitable initiatives, and global reach. Maya had seen their advertisements on TV and walked past their towering headquarters in the city center countless times. To think that James Whitaker III, the man behind it all, had been sitting in her section just weeks ago, quietly observing the world around him. It was surreal. After debating with herself for hours, Maya finally mustered the courage to pick up the phone and dial the number on the card. Her heart pounded as the line rang once, twice, 3 times. Just as she began to doubt whether she should hang up, a cheerful voice answered. "Mr. Whitaker's office," the assistant said warmly. Hello," Maya stammered, suddenly nervous. "My name is Maya Johnson. I received a letter from Mr. Whitaker asking me to call him." There was a brief pause before the assistant replied, "Oh yes, Ms. Johnson, he's been expecting your call. Let me transfer you." Before Maya could respond, the line clicked and another voice came on, calm, steady, and unmistakably kind. "Ms. Johnson, thank you for calling. This is James Whitaker." For a moment, Maya forgot how to speak. The voice on the other end of the line belonged to one of the most powerful men in the country, yet it carried none of the arrogance or detachment she might have expected. Instead, it radiated warmth and sincerity. Gathering her composure, she managed to say, "Mr. Whitaker, thank you for reaching out to me. I still can't believe it's really you." James chuckled softly. "Believe it, Ms. Johnson. You made quite an impression on me during our last meeting. I wanted to express my gratitude personally and discuss how I might repay your kindness." Maya's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "It was nothing, really. I was just doing what anyone would do." "That's where you're wrong," James interjected gently. "Not everyone would have gone out of their way to help a stranger, like you did. And that's exactly why I wanted to connect with you. Kindness is rare these days, especially when people are under pressure. Yours stood out." They spoke for several minutes, with James explaining that he often visited businesses incognito to observe how employees treated customers. These visits allowed him to gauge the values and integrity of organizations and individuals from a unique perspective. When he described his experience at the restaurant, Maya listened intently, marveling at how such a small act of compassion had resonated so deeply with him. By the end of the conversation, James extended an invitation. "I'd like to meet you, in person, Ms. Johnson. Can you come to my office tomorrow afternoon? There's something I want to discuss with you." Maya hesitated, unsure of what to expect, but something about James's tone reassured her. "Of course," she replied. "Thank you again, Mr. Whitaker. I'll see you tomorrow." The next day, Maya dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that balanced professionalism with her own style. As she stepped into the gleaming skyscraper that housed Whitaker Enterprises, she couldn't help but feel awestruck. The lobby was bustling with activity, and the air buzzed with energy. A receptionist greeted her warmly and escorted her to the top floor, where James awaited her in a spacious office overlooking the city. When they met face to face, Maya was struck by the contrast between the man before her and the one she had served at the restaurant. Gone were the faded jacket and worn-out shoes. Instead, James wore a tailored suit and exuded confidence. Yet, his demeanor remained humble and approachable. "Ms. Johnson," he began, gesturing for her to sit. "Let me start by saying thank you again, for everything. Your actions reminded me of something important. No matter how successful we become, humanity should always come first." He then outlined his proposal, a position at Whitaker Enterprises as a community outreach coordinator. The role involved spearheading programs to support marginalized groups and advocate for workplace fairness. It was more than just a job. It was an opportunity to create real change. As Maya processed his words, tears welled up in her eyes, not of sadness, but of overwhelming relief and gratitude. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope blooming within her. This chance meeting had turned into a lifeline, pulling her out of despair and setting her on a path she never could have imagined. Maya left James Whitaker's office that day with her mind spinning and her heart full. The weight of his offer felt both exhilarating and overwhelming. A position at Whitaker Enterprises, working directly under one of the most respected leaders in the country, was something she could never have dreamed of just days earlier. Yet here she was, being handed an opportunity to not only rebuild her life, but also make a difference in the lives of others. It was as if the universe had conspired to turn her darkest moment into a beacon of hope. Over the next few weeks, Maya threw herself into her new role with unwavering determination. James introduced her to the team and provided her with resources to learn about the company's existing outreach programs. He encouraged her to bring fresh ideas to the table, emphasizing that her unique perspective as someone who had faced adversity firsthand would be invaluable. "We need people like you," he told her during one of their early meetings. "People who understand what it means to struggle and still choose kindness." Maya's first project was close to her heart, addressing workplace discrimination and advocating for fair treatment of service workers. Drawing from her own experience of being fired for helping the elderly man, she proposed a campaign called Respect at Work. The initiative aimed to educate employers and employees alike on the importance of empathy, dignity, and fairness in professional settings. She shared her story openly, using it as a foundation to spark meaningful conversations about systemic biases and how they affected marginalized communities. The response was overwhelming. News outlets picked up her story after James shared it publicly, praising Maya's courage and resilience. Social media buzzed with support as people rallied behind her message of compassion over profit. Many former co-workers from the restaurant reached out to express their admiration, admitting they wished they had stood up for her when she was let go. Others shared their own experiences of facing discrimination or unfair treatment at work, creating a wave of solidarity and awareness. Meanwhile, Maya filed a wrongful termination lawsuit against her former employer, with Whitaker Enterprises backing her case. The lawsuit gained national attention, shining a spotlight on the challenges faced by low-wage workers in the service industry. Legal experts weighed in, discussing how companies often prioritized appearances over humanity, leaving employees vulnerable to unjust practices. The case became a catalyst for change, prompting calls for stricter regulations and accountability within the restaurant sector. In the end, the chain restaurant agreed to a settlement with Maya. As part of the agreement, they implemented sweeping reforms to prevent similar incidents in the future. These included mandatory training sessions on workplace empathy, revised policies to protect workers from retaliation, and partnerships with advocacy groups to promote inclusivity. While the changes wouldn't erase the pain Maya had endured, they offered a glimmer of redemption, not just for her, but for countless others who might now benefit from a more compassionate workplace culture. As months passed, Maya settled into her new life with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt before. She moved Ethan and herself into a safer, more stable apartment, where they no longer had to worry about eviction notices or empty cupboards. For the first time in years, she felt secure enough to focus on building a brighter future. Ethan thrived in his new school environment, making friends quickly and excelling academically. On weekends, he proudly helped Maya organize community events tied to her outreach initiatives, learning valuable lessons about kindness and leadership along the way. James continued to mentor Maya, recognizing her potential as a leader. Under his guidance, she honed her skills in public speaking, strategic planning, and advocacy. Together, they expanded Whitaker Enterprises' philanthropic efforts, focusing on education, affordable housing, and economic empowerment for underserved populations. Their partnership blossomed into a deep friendship rooted in mutual respect and shared values. James often joked that hiring Maya was one of the best decisions he'd ever made, not just for the company, but for himself. Through it all, Maya remained grounded, never forgetting where she came from or the struggles that had shaped her journey. Every success reminded her of the importance of staying true to oneself, even when the world seemed determined to push back. And though her life had transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined, she carried the same warmth and humility that had defined her since the beginning. Her story was far from over, but for now, she allowed herself to savor the victories, knowing they were proof that kindness could indeed change the world. As the months rolled by, Maya's transformation became nothing short of remarkable. From being a struggling single mother on the brink of despair, she had risen to become a beacon of hope and resilience, not just for herself, but for countless others who looked up to her story. Her role at Whitaker Enterprises gave her a platform to amplify voices that were often ignored, and she used it with grace and purpose. Every day felt like an opportunity to rewrite narratives, challenge stereotypes, and create spaces where people could feel seen and valued. One of Maya's proudest achievements came when Respect at Work launched its first major event, a nationwide summit aimed at addressing workplace discrimination and promoting fairness. The event brought together leaders from various industries, activists, scholars, and everyday workers like herself to share experiences and brainstorm solutions. Maya stood on stage as the keynote speaker, her voice steady despite the hundreds of eyes fixed on her. She began by recounting her own journey, the struggles, the kindness she showed to the elderly man, the unjust firing, and how it all led her here. "I didn't set out to change the world," she admitted, pausing to let her words sink in. "I simply wanted to do what I thought was right. But sometimes doing the right thing can spark something bigger than we ever imagined." Her speech resonated deeply with the audience, earning a standing ovation that seemed to stretch on forever. People approached her afterward, tears streaming down their faces, thanking her for giving them the courage to speak up about their own battles. Journalists clamored to interview her, and soon, her face appeared in newspapers, magazines, and television segments across the country. Yet through it all, Maya remained humble, deflecting praise onto the communities she served. "This isn't about me," she'd say whenever someone called her a hero. "It's about all of us working together to make things better." Home, life took on a new rhythm. Ethan adjusted beautifully to their improved circumstances, thriving in school and embracing hobbies he'd never had access to before. He joined a robotics club, started playing soccer, and even began volunteering alongside Maya at community events. Watching him grow into such a confident and compassionate young boy filled Maya with immense pride. On quiet evenings, they'd sit together at the kitchen table, sketching ideas for future projects or talking about the importance of helping others. "Mommy," Ethan said one night, his eyes shining with admiration, "you're my favorite superhero." Maya laughed, softly pulling him into a hug. "And you're mine, sweetheart." Meanwhile, James Whitaker continued to champion Maya's efforts, ensuring she had the resources and support needed to succeed. Their partnership evolved into a mentorship that went beyond professional boundaries. James often invited Maya to high-profile meetings, introducing her to influential figures who shared her passion for social justice. These connections opened doors Maya hadn't known existed, allowing her to collaborate with organizations dedicated to education reform, affordable housing initiatives, and economic empowerment programs. Together, they worked tirelessly to uplift marginalized communities, proving that businesses could and should be forces for good. But perhaps the most profound impact of Maya's journey was the ripple effect it created. Inspired by her story, companies began revisiting their policies to prioritize empathy and inclusivity. Schools incorporated lessons on kindness and integrity into their curriculums. Social media campaigns encouraged people to perform small acts of compassion, reminding everyone that even the tiniest gestures could have monumental consequences. Maya's message, that humanity should always come first, spread far and wide, touching lives she would never meet. Despite her growing fame, Maya stayed true to her roots. She visited her old neighborhood regularly, organizing food drives, career workshops, and mentorship programs for families facing hardships similar to hers. Her presence reassured those still struggling that brighter days were possible if they held on to hope and kept pushing forward. Friends and former coworkers marveled at how much she'd accomplished while remaining the same kind-hearted person they'd always known. By the end of the year, Maya realized she wasn't just rebuilding her life, she was creating a legacy rooted in compassion, perseverance, and the belief that no act of kindness, no matter how small, was ever wasted. And though challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, she faced them with renewed strength, knowing she wasn't alone. She carried the love, support, and gratitude of everyone whose lives she had touched, a reminder that goodness truly did exist, even in. Years had passed since that fateful night at the restaurant, and Maya's life now bore little resemblance to the one she once knew. The young woman who had once worried about making ends meet was now a respected advocate, a symbol of resilience, and a leader in her field. Her journey from waitress to community outreach coordinator, and eventually to a prominent figure in social reform, was nothing short of extraordinary. Yet, despite all the accolades and recognition, Maya remained grounded, always remembering the lessons she'd learned along the way. One evening, Maya found herself standing backstage at a prestigious award ceremony, her heart racing with anticipation. She had been nominated for the Humanitarian of the Year award, an honor named after her, the Maya Johnson Compassion Prize. As she adjusted her dress and took a deep breath, memories flooded her mind. The long nights spent juggling work and motherhood, the humiliation of being fired, the kindness she showed to an elderly man without expecting anything in return, and the chain of events that followed. It was surreal to think that one small act of compassion had set this entire journey in motion. When her name was announced as the winner, Maya walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The spotlight felt warm against her skin, but it wasn't overwhelming. Instead, it filled her with gratitude for the people who had supported her, for the opportunities she'd been given, and for the chance to inspire others. As she accepted the award, she looked out at the sea of faces before her, each person representing a story, a struggle, or a dream waiting to be realized. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "This award isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who has ever chosen kindness over convenience, empathy over indifference, and hope over despair." She went on to share her story once again, not because she needed validation, but because she wanted to remind people of the power of small actions. That night at the restaurant, I didn't think twice about helping an elderly man cut his steak. To me, it was simply the right thing to do. But what I didn't realize then was that no act of kindness is too small to make a difference. Sometimes, it takes stepping outside our comfort zones, putting ourselves on the line, and trusting that goodness will find its way back to us. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom wiped away tears as they listened. Maya spoke not only about her successes, but also about her failures, the moments of doubt, the rejections, the fear of starting over. She emphasized that setbacks were not the end, but rather stepping stones towards something greater. "Life may knock you down," she said, "but it's up to you to decide whether you'll stay there or get back up. And when you do, remember this: you have the power to change someone's life, even in ways you can't predict." The speech ended with another standing ovation, and as Maya stepped off the stage, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This moment wasn't about personal glory. It was about the collective impact of humanity coming together to lift one another up. She thought about James Whittaker, who had believed in her when few others did, and Ethan, whose unwavering faith in her had kept her going during the darkest times. Their belief in her had become the foundation upon which she built her new life. In the months that followed, Maya continued to expand her reach. Books were written about her journey, documentaries captured her evolution from struggle to success, and filmmakers optioned her story for a feature film. Despite the attention, Maya ensured that these projects highlighted not just her achievements, but also the broader issues she cared about: workplace fairness, economic empowerment, and the importance of treating every individual with dignity. Her message transcended borders, inspiring people around the world to embrace compassion as a guiding principle. At home, Maya cherished the simple joys: a quiet dinner with Ethan, laughter-filled evenings watching movies, and weekends spent volunteering in their community. She taught Ethan the value of staying humble, reminding him that true success wasn't measured by wealth or fame, but by the positive impact you left on the world. Together, they dreamed big, knowing they had the tools and determination to turn those dreams into reality. Though Maya's story had already inspired millions, she knew her work was far from finished. There were still lives to touch, barriers to break, and hearts to heal. As she looked toward the future, she carried with her the same warmth, humility, and resolve that had defined her journey from the start. For Maya, every day was an opportunity to plant seeds of kindness, knowing they would grow into something beautiful, one act of compassion at a time. Maya's journey had transformed her life in ways she could never have imagined. But it wasn't just about her. Over time, she realized that her story had become a catalyst for change, far beyond what she had envisioned. The ripple effect of her kindness stretched across communities, industries, and even generations. People from all walks of life began to see the world differently because of her example. They started paying closer attention to the elderly man struggling to carry his groceries, the single mother working 2 jobs to make ends meet, or the coworker quietly battling personal challenges. Maya's story reminded them that compassion wasn't just an act, it was a way of living. One afternoon, while attending a community event organized by Whitaker Enterprises, Maya noticed a young waitress serving attendees with a familiar warmth and attentiveness. Something about the girl's demeanor caught Maya's eye. Her patience, her smile, her willingness to go the extra mile. It felt like looking into a mirror of her younger self. After the event, Maya approached the waitress and struck up a conversation. The girl, named Tanya, shared how she admired Maya's work and confessed that hearing her story had inspired her to pursue her own dreams, despite the odds stacked against her. "I used to think being kind at work made me weak," Tanya admitted, shyly. "But your story showed me that it's actually my greatest strength." Maya smiled, feeling a surge of pride. In that moment, she understood the true depth of her impact. Her actions hadn't only changed her life, they were shaping the lives of others, encouraging them to embrace their humanity and believe in their potential. She hugged Tanya warmly and said, "Never stop believing in yourself. You have no idea how much good you're capable of doing." As years passed, Maya continued to champion causes close to her heart. Under her leadership, Whitaker Enterprises launched initiatives that provided scholarships for underprivileged students, affordable housing projects for low-income families, and mentorship programs for women re-entering the workforce. These efforts touched countless lives, creating opportunities where none had existed before. Maya traveled extensively, speaking at conferences, visiting schools, and meeting individuals whose stories mirrored her own. Everywhere she went, she left behind a trail of hope and inspiration. Ethan, now a teenager, grew up watching his mother transform adversity into triumph. He absorbed her values of kindness, perseverance, and humility, embodying them in his own life. At school, he became known as the boy who always helped others, whether it was tutoring classmates, organizing fundraisers, or simply offering a listening ear. Maya often joked that Ethan was turning out to be more compassionate than she ever was, though deep down, she knew it was a testament to the environment they had built together, an environment rooted in love and empathy. Despite her success, Maya never lost sight of where she came from. She returned frequently to her old neighborhood, hosting workshops and mentoring young people eager to break free from cycles of poverty and despair. Many of those she mentored went on to achieve incredible things. A former neighbor opened a bakery. A childhood friend started a nonprofit for at-risk youth, and several kids from the area earned scholarships to prestigious universities. Each success story fueled Maya's determination to keep pushing forward, knowing that every effort mattered. In quieter moments, Maya reflected on the twists and turns of her journey. She thought about the elderly man who had unknowingly set everything in motion, James Whitaker, whose belief in her had changed her trajectory, and the countless strangers who had rallied behind her during her darkest days. She realized that her story wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who had played a part in it, big or small. Years later, when Maya stood on yet another stage to deliver a speech, she looked out at the audience with a sense of peace. Her hair was streaked with gray now and lines framed her eyes, but her spirit remained as vibrant as ever. "Life is unpredictable," she said, her voice steady and full of conviction. "You never know when a simple act of kindness will lead to something extraordinary. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it. Be the light someone needs, even if you can't see the impact right away. Because trust me, it matters." Her words echoed through the auditorium, resonating with everyone present. As applause erupted around her, Maya took a deep breath, letting the moment sink in. She didn't need awards or recognition to feel fulfilled. The knowledge that she had made a difference was enough. And as she stepped off the stage, hand in hand with Ethan, she knew one thing for certain. Her legacy of compassion would live on, carried forward